Welcome back into Weather Underground. I'm meteorologist Dr. Erica Navarro coming for you live from Scituate, Massachusetts here, right along the coast of the Atlantic. Just over my shoulder is Winter Storm Riley beginning to take shape. We're going to see those winds shift very shortly from the northwest to the east-northeast, and that's going to help push all of this water up here into some coastal areas, causing some major issues here in Scituate, as well as some other areas outside along the coast. Now, in the Scituate area, they are urging people to evacuate. And if you do so, there is a form online that you can actually sign in and say where you are evacuating to. So that way everyone is accounted for and they don't accidentally put you as a missing person. So please, they are urging people to take this seriously. Know that this is a resource for you, again, so that you are accounted for. And they are taking preparations all along the coast here in this area and others. Now, the rain right now is off to our south. We're not seeing that rain push in just yet, but overnight, the conditions are going to worsen significantly as we see that heavy rain begin to push in into the early hours of the morning. So by 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow, rain will be overspreading the area and winds will have picked up by this point to about 30, 40 miles per hour. Now, those are the sustained winds. The wind gusts here in Scituate could be as much as 50 to 60 miles per hour. Other areas along the coast could be seeing as much as 70 miles per hour. This is like a hurricane in this type of area. Significant impacts in terms of coastal flooding, storm surge, and others. So, Mike, a major storm system here along the coast with many impacts and snow even farther inland.
This thing becomes a huge, huge disaster tomorrow. Dr. Navarro, thank you very much. Well, we know the disaster that has unfolded across the South over the past month or so. Look at all the places that have seen their wettest Februarys on record, from Dallas to Shreveport, Little Rock, Memphis, Tupelo. The result on your right side of your screen, epic flooding from Owensboro, Kentucky to Utica, Indiana. And as we wrapped up February, we talked to a couple of our favorite personal weather station owners about the amount of rain they saw and the storms they had as well.
Hi, Jeff Blazinski here from Dublin, Ohio. A very rainy month of February 2018 here. Total rainfall for the month, 5.11 inches. Much more than we see even in the springtime. A number of major storm events occurring toward the middle end part of the month. Some storm totals here, the highest it looks like around 1.5 inches, close to 2 inches. And pretty consistent quarter-inch, half-inch rain events all throughout that latter half of the month.
Hi, it's Doppler Tom Iwinski from Garden City, Michigan, and we've seen a crazy month here in southern Michigan. We've seen snow early in the month. The last few weeks it's been rain. We've seen about 3 inches of rain, and with the combination of that melting snowpack and rain, we've seen a lot of river flooding and basement flooding all across our area.
Hey, this is Kirk Harnack in Nashville, Tennessee, reporting on the amount of rain we've gotten here in Nashville at my own personal weather station here for the month. And, it's 9.32 inches on my roof here in Nashville, 9.32 inches so far for the month. And that's really close to the official reading for the Weather Service here in Nashville at 9.68 inches for the month. And that's about 5.25 inches above normal for this time of year.
So as Kurt had mentioned there, he had picked up just over 9 inches of rain, but his total on his calendar said 11. Since the time we talked to him, he had picked up that. So over 11 inches for Kurt there in Nashville for the month. Incredible, okay? So now that storm system now rolling its way off to the east. By the way, this squall line that came through Charleston, South Carolina, produced wind gusts of 55 miles an hour, all right? The heaviest of rain is happening for us right now in eastern North Carolina, so we'll take you out here to the Outer Banks from Elizabeth City down toward Hatters. Really heavy slug of rain here. Getting quieter for you now in places like Rocky Mount and Greenville, so we'll get some opportunity to dry out here. And the good news is that just about all the heavy stuff at this point is on its way out. We'll go ahead and show you what the future radar shows here. And for many of you, it means quieter conditions through the night as the entire storm system pushes east. Really thin, weakening line comes down through Florida. You may not even notice it as you sleep tonight. And take a look here. We're talking mid-morning tomorrow. Looking pretty quiet here across the southeast. Snow may come down to the southern Appalachians, but for the most part, most of you should be in pretty good shape. How much more accumulation will we get? Hardly any. Take a look at this map. Total accumulation in the heaviest of rain up to an inch. Most of that's already fallen. And still to come here on Weather Underground, a lot more on our top story. It's Winter Storm Riley, the dangerous coastal flood threat. Plus, the next storm, it's Winter Storm Quinn, already slamming the west with up to 6 feet of snow, and significant impacts could last through next week.
Welcome back to Weather Underground. We are live here in Buffalo, New York, where the snow is really starting to come down. Take a look at the winds as well. This is not just a snowmaker. This is a multifaceted nor'easter from here where we are in Western New York, where we are going to see a crippling, if not blizzard-like snowstorm, and possibly our snowiest storm of the season. We just have to beat 9 inches, which is a good likelihood we will certainly do that. And look at how visibility really declining. The wind's getting anywhere from 30, possibly 35 miles per hour as last check, and it will continue to increase. So this is not only going to be a snowmaker, making travel, if not extremely dangerous, near impossible, but we're also going to deal with the issues of possible power outages, trees being weighed down, and that will also bring down power lines and can also be obstacles for drivers as well. So this is all going to happen overnight tonight and into the day tomorrow. Take a live look at Erie, Pennsylvania. That's about 100 miles to our south, where they are really seeing the snow coming down, and everything they're getting, we're getting next, because it's all moving up that I-90 corridor. By the way, I-90, really dangerous drive right now with visibility down below a fourth of a mile, especially near the New York-Pennsylvania state line. Here in Buffalo, New York, you can see the grass. We're on this square in downtown Buffalo, New York, and you can see it's starting to accumulate some slush. It's been taking some time because keep in mind we had near record-breaking highs yesterday, but now the ground's starting to cool down, and once you get that first layer of slush, the snow's just going to pile on top of that, and that's what's going to cause issues. But keep in mind, this is Winter Storm Riley. On the other side of the country, we got Winter Storm Quinn, and boy, are we talking about snow totals galore, up to 5 feet and more. Let's go back to the studio with Mike for more on the West Coast storm.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Some pretty incredible scenes there. Really interesting to watch that Erie cam, the snow going sideways here. How about this? What's going on for us in Truckee, California? Winter Storm Quinn pounding us here. Blizzard warnings in effect for parts of the Sierra. I-80 might be shut down for the first time this winter, and getting to the ski resorts might be next to impossible. What is going on in the West? All our focus has been on our eastern storm, but in the West, Tom, we have maybe another storm system that could rival what Riley is, and that's Winter Storm Quinn.
Yeah, Winter Storm Quinn, it's prompted all of these warnings across the West here. Salt Lake City under Winter Storm warning right now, but take a look at that blizzard warning across the Sierra, where winds over mountaintop could exceed 90-mile-an-hour gusts as we go through tonight and tomorrow. This is really another interesting system, a big bowling ball of a system coming down, moving very slowly, working its way into the southwest. It's going to be an extended period of snow, tremendous amount of moisture coming into the coast here right now, right up against the Sierra. But look at this plume. I don't like this for a number of reasons. That's
and not to mention, they're getting that rain in Southern California over some burn scars there. They've got mandatory evacuations in parts of Santa Barbara County, Montecito, where they had the big event recently.
It's terrible because you want the precipitation in that part of the world. You need it, but if it comes like this, in burn scar areas in particular, it can be extremely dangerous.
It doesn't seem like we can get that steady, consistent snow or rain. It's been all or nothing.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of those systems. You can see the heavy rain down here. The entire area gets plastered. The Sierra going to pick up as much as 5 to 6 feet of snow. The system hangs around here for a long period of time. It is going to continue to produce snow here. Eventually, Winter Storm Quinn will weaken, then redevelop off the Rockies here as a Colorado low and bring more snow into next week going in up across the upper Midwest. So there's your snowfall totals, and we've got to show this. This is as much as 5 to 6 feet of snow across the Sierra, and that's going just through Saturday night.
Mind officially blown.
Crazy.
Tom, thank you. Hey, Dr. Nabry joining us as well, so we're going to answer some of your questions here to wrap up this hour. Our first question coming via Twitter, and this one from Magnum asking, will these winds rival those of Superstorm Sandy in reference to what's coming with Winter Storm Riley?
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of gusts, the peak gust that we saw in Sandy was up around 95 miles an hour. That was at least measured. And we could see that in different places. That was measured on Long Island. You could see a gust getting close to that, maybe on Nantucket. So we could see a lot of hurricane force gusts. Sandy, there were hurricane force gusts in 7 different states. And we could get kind of in that neighborhood with this one.
And I'm going to throw surprise one at you guys because it's kind of a little surprise to me. Mike and I just talking Cleveland Lakefront, okay? This is an area we weren't talking about much of the way of wind. Gusted to 53 miles an hour right now with the snow coming into Cleveland. You could see it on Erie's lights, and Chris Bruin shot there where the snow was actually moving horizontally with winds gusting over 50 miles an hour way back on this side of the state.
And just think
already.
we're going to have a new, larger, stronger low form over water. You're going to have that open ocean exposure with those strong winds coming onto the coastal areas. So believe us, we're not making this stuff up about the hurricane
Do you
force
think
wind
we
gusts.
could be under forecasting the wind?
I don't think so, but given that we're forecasting this enormous area that could get power outages, I think we're getting people their attention, and they should be getting ready.
I certainly hope so. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for your questions. We're back in just 60 seconds. We take you out to the field to show you what's happening. Coming up right now on Weather Underground, Winter Storm Riley, a potentially destructive nor'easter that could generate hurricane-force winds in the Northeast. We are going to take you live to where feet of coastal flooding is likely into the weekend. And then the snowy side of this dangerous storm packing a big punch. We show you who could see their biggest snowstorm of the season with more than a foot to fall. And then slamming the west with blizzard conditions and 6 feet of snow is Winter Storm Quinn. We show you where significant coast-to-coast impacts are likely through next week. It's all right now on Weather Underground. And thank you for staying with us. Hour 3, a special extended edition of Weather Underground. I'm Mike Bettis. Alex Wilson off this evening. We've got all of our experts in-house tonight to keep you up to date on Winter Storm Riley, a developing dangerous nor'easter targeting the East Coast. Snow already falling across the Midwest and the Northeast. We have meteorologist Chris Bruin live in Buffalo, New York tonight, but it's the coast at risk for life-threatening conditions. We start off with Dr. Erica Navarro in Scituate, Massachusetts.
Yeah, Mike, life-threatening storm surge could be an issue here in places along the Massachusetts coast. I'm here in Scituate, Massachusetts, which is about 33 miles to the southeast of Boston and sits right on the Atlantic Ocean. Now, we're watching here as the water levels are starting to come up as high tide is pushing its way in. Just in the few hours that I've been standing here, we've seen that water come up. But with these winds that are going to be coming in with the system, we're expecting those water levels to be 4 to 5 feet above ground. That could be putting us into the major flood stage here in a place like Scituate. Now, comparing this to Winter Storm Grayson, a lot of areas there said that that was a major storm. Mike, this could be even worse than that because the duration here could be as much as 36 hours of very strong winds.
And those winds are going to do huge things to the water. Dr. Navarro, thank you. We've got with us our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Dabb. The amount of wind, the duration of wind, the direction of wind, all a huge concern for you.
Yeah, it's what we call a fetch. And on the northern side of the low pressure area that we expect to form overnight and into tomorrow morning is going to create this long fetch where you have over a very long distance, you have very strong winds blowing for a long period of time, and that just builds up the seas, and it's pointed straight at the Massachusetts coastline, Scituate, just one of the places that's under a coastal flood warning with a chance of major coastal flooding. That could be structural damage, and it's also a place where we could have life-threatening storm surge evacuations are being called. If you're told to get out tonight or early tomorrow morning, you got to do it. It could save your life.
I feel like something like a nor'easter, we aren't often talking about removing people from their homes and out of harm's way because these things generally are moving faster.
Right, and this is the slow-moving, large variety of nor'easter that makes it more of a storm surge producer. And when it hangs around longer, you not only get the storm surge, you get a longer period of wind on land. But because the wind is going to be blowing over such a large area for such a long time over water, watch what happens to the ocean. This is just by noon tomorrow. This huge wave field. Now you're already getting 20, 25-foot waves offshore, but look at the waves coming straight toward the Massachusetts coastline. Then by tomorrow night, you're getting 30, 35-foot waves offshore, and some of those waves are getting pretty close to the coastline. So you're going to get the storm surge coming into coastal areas of Massachusetts, but also really big waves on top of that. That's what could get water into structures, could damage structures, could even take out structures, and that's why it's life-threatening.
It's just a really tough situation. Massachusetts obviously is going to be hugely impacted. When would you expect the winds to start to back off to a reasonable level?
You got to wait for pretty much the whole weekend for this to really start dying down on the coastline. This is late on Saturday. Things are getting a little better, but still it's windy on the coast. The coastal storm surge warning, well, it's not a storm surge warning, but it's essentially that.
It would in essence be
yeah,
if it were a
tropical
system.
But it's going to go through multiple tide cycles well into Saturday night, so wait till at least Sunday.
Okay, Dr. Knabb, thank you very much. On the other side of it, we have a big snow threat. Winter storm warnings in effect for Detroit and Cleveland. 32 degrees for us right now in Detroit. It's 34 in Cleveland. You're in there somewhere, Cleveland. Trust us, that's a live camera. It's just snowing so hard you can't see where the city is. Snowing pretty good right now in Buffalo, New York as well. Also a winter storm warning there. Meteorologist Chris Bruin joining us live. Chris, the conditions have deteriorated rapidly here, and now we're just waiting for the snow to start to accumulate. Very, very high accumulations expected by the morning.
Yeah, we already saw 7 inches in Detroit. We can expect nearly double that here in Buffalo. And I've been keeping a watch on the grassy surfaces. It is starting to accumulate on those surfaces. As far as the roads go, they're still wet, but they are cooling down, and the snow rates are continuing to pick up. We're keeping a close watch on the City Hall, which is right down the middle of the street behind me. And you can see that the visibility is continuing to lessen. We're almost barely able to make out the top of that skyscraper there in the distance. This is the deal. We've got 12 to 15 inches of snow possible. It's not a fluffy wet snow. If you can imagine, I am soaked to the bone. This is a wet snow. It weighs a lot. So when you throw in a foot of that on top of trees and people's rooftops, it adds a lot of weight. So we could see those branches come down. That could knock out power, and it could cause some serious hazards on roadways, not just extremely dangerous travel conditions. Keep in mind, the National Weather Service in Buffalo is saying near blizzard-like conditions through the evening and overnight hours. At times, you're not even going to be able to see. And imagine a complete cutoff of the roads. Guys, Mike, driving in slushy, wet, heavy, gloppy snow is extremely dangerous. So stay home and wait till conditions improve, which they will by the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely they will. Tom, doesn't Chris look like something like a Jimmy Fallon skit where someone just took a box of like snow confetti and just threw it like right on him?
Yeah.
He's plastered.
And
his whole front's covered in snow.
If you think that's bad, wait till you see the scene tomorrow morning.
Look at this guy.
There he is. Look at him.
Good sport there. But this is, to his point, heavy, thick, wet snow is sticking to everything.
Oh, yeah, and it's just going to get worse. Take a look where the warnings are, all the way from Cleveland. We're going to get to that in a minute, all the way over to the coast here, to just to the west of Boston here and around Worcester. Now, take a look at this. 34 in Detroit, 54 in Pittsburgh, huge temperature difference, but look at how tight the pressure gradient is right there. Very heavy snow coming down and strong winds, and I talked about the snow in and around Detroit, as much as 7 inches of snow there. This is what I was concerned about, is that band coming into Cleveland, and we saw the video there. Couldn't see anything going on
If you couldn't
there.
see it, you couldn't see Cleveland at all.
By the
Those
way,
gusts are ridiculous.
Look at the gusts, 50 miles an hour almost in the Cleveland area, which is critical. The visibility officially at 3/4, probably lower than that on the west side of the city right now. And up in Buffalo, it's coming down. It's starting to come down heavier as well. The visibility's down to a 1/4 mile in some of these areas. Erie down to a 1/2 mile with winds gusting over 40. This is what is going to play out over the next 24 hours or so. And those snowfall totals are really, really significant. But it's also going to be a heavy wet snow, and it's going to be driven by winds gusting over 30 miles an hour. Again, I'm concerned not only for extensive travel delays on 90, the major arteries, but also issues with power outages.
All right, Tom, thank you for the update. When we come back, we talk more about Winter Storm Riley. Welcome back to Weather Underground. We're following Winter Storm Riley for you. We think it could be a potentially life-threatening coastal flood event, damaging piers, seawalls, small craft, shore and roads could be flooded and washed out even. Large debris could be washed ashore. That life-threatening storm surge and surf could affect your neighborhood. Now, earlier this evening, we spoke to meteorologist in charge at the Boston Taunton office, Robert Thompson. He talked about what they're expecting, what they're worried about from Winter Storm Riley.
Many folks in this area experienced high water levels on January 4th. The difference is that we're looking at much larger waves with these high tide cycles, and thus a greater risk of damage along the immediate ocean-exposed coastline.
He's talking about early January, and that was Winter Storm Grayson, which was a more classic nor'easter. Dr. Nav thing came up from the south and then began to bomb out there. Was that a lot of talk was the bomb cyclone that was happening? This will be a bomb cyclone as well. But what's different is the duration. We set record tide levels during Winter Storm Grayson. Could they be surpassed with this one?
In certain places, yes, this could be worse than Grayson in early January. And there also could be some locations that haven't flooded in a long time that could flood in this case. So don't look to past storms to say, well, I got through that one, that other one wasn't so bad, so I'll be fine in this one. You could experience wind and water in this one that's worse than you have in a long time, if not ever.
This low really intensifies by mid-afternoon tomorrow, and the direction of wind becomes so key.
Yeah, it's pushing the ocean over a long fetch, over a long time with strong winds directly into the Massachusetts coastline. But it's not just the presence of this big low pressure system for a long period of time. We also have to deal with the higher than usual astronomical tides that are going to be coming and going while this storm system sits out there. We're going to go through multiple tide cycles. And so what that means is you might get some coastal flooding and waves that are really nasty, and then it'll back off for a little bit, and then it'll come back again, then back off, then come back again. So what we want to point out is that these high tide cycles are going to start about midday tomorrow.
Right.
That's going to be the first high tide cycle in places like Boston where you have the storm occurring at the same time. Then tomorrow night, then midday Saturday, you're going to have all of these high tide cycles. And then as we go on, you're going to get an increasing contribution from the storm itself. So these high tides are going a little bit over your average highest tide because we've got full moon. The tides are higher than they usually are. And then you add the storm. Put that all together, the storm surge and the astronomical tides combine to have water levels above normally dry ground near the coast. It could be 4-5 feet high above the ground where you're standing.
To me, this seems like a very sneaky, perfect storm that's setting up here. That's not one of these classic ones. We'll have watched it for days, move its way up the coastline, and it was perfectly forecast. This one taking a different track, and it's rapidly intensifying at the moment that it sits in a perfect location off the coast.
Yeah, so it's kind of sneaky in a different way. You know, there's not this big, strong, low-pressure system coming at us. There's a low coming at us, but there's a different one that's going to form overnight offshore, and then it's just going to boom, right in place, become this really strong and really large system. And because of those multiple high tide cycles, we're going to get into moderate to major coastal flooding in the Boston Harbor, for example. This could put water into subway tunnels, into basements of many different kinds of structures. Then you go to where Dr. Navarro is in Scituate. They could get moderate to major tomorrow midday, and then major coastal flooding tomorrow night into Saturday, again to the 4 to 5 feet above ground at the coast.
When we see those classic shots of the big waves that crash, it's usually in Scituate.
Yep.
That's going to play out again tomorrow.
Yep, and those waves can be damaging and even deadly.
All right, Dr. Nab, thank you very much. We come back here, we're going to talk about the widespread heavy snow that will...
Welcome back to Weather Underground. The Weather Channel is continuing live coverage of Winter Storm Riley. This is a powerful nor'easter that isn't just producing snow effects here in western New York, but a huge coastal issue. In fact, life-threatening tides back along the coastline. But here in Buffalo, it's not going to be the coastal concerns that are going to be our biggest worry. It's going to be the heavy, wet snow and gusty winds. By the way, Erie, Pennsylvania, already gusting over 40 miles per hour, and those strong winds are working up that I-90 corridor. We're getting close to 30-mile-per-hour gusts here in and around the Buffalo area, and I can tell you the snow is blowing left and right. Way down this street, this is Court Street, and there's City Hall. There's a snow plow. He's been putting down some salt. So we've been seeing the crews out and about. The city has 80 plows and a whole fleet of 80 trucks that the city owns, and they are bringing in extra help by the State Department of Transportation from other areas of the state to help relocate some of the prime aspects on some of the hardest hit areas by this possibly crippling snowmaker, by the way. This is the potential for our snowiest storm of the season thus far. The snowiest winter storm we have seen here in Buffalo this winter was earlier in January when we saw 9 inches. We're expecting over a foot in some areas, and it's already starting to accumulate. I'm going to have Mark kind of zoom in a little bit to these cars, and you can kind of see they are getting coated in white now. So the snow's starting to accumulate, not just on the grassy surfaces, but also on cars, and now starting to get a slushy mix on some of the sidewalks. So it's just a matter of time before the roads get covered. And guys, I can assure you, I-90 is already an extremely treacherous drive. Franklinville, Mike, has already seen 5 inches of snow, and they saw an inch in just 30 minutes. That's how intense these snowfall rates are, and they're headed straight for Buffalo.
Really intense stuff. Chris, thank you very much for the update. Do the math there, Tom. That would equate to 2-inch snowfall rates an hour in some of the intense bands here.
Yeah, and where Chris is, he's in Buffalo. It's right near the waterfront, down around 600 feet elevation. Franklinville, south of Buffalo, up at about 1,700 feet. So
that makes a difference.
They're getting that colder air from the elevation, and they're further inland. So the snow, but it's going to really deteriorate there as well. Take a look back in Detroit, where they picked up almost 7 inches of snow. It's beginning to wind down, but there's still a couple more heavier bands there. But further to the east here, Cleveland is just getting pasted right now with this heavy band of snow. Erie as well. And then if you go north up here into Buffalo, that's where the snow is really starting to come down heavier. Franklinville right about here, heavier band of snow in there right now. So a lot going on. Visibility's down to a quarter mile in some of these areas, and that I-90 corridor has got to be a wicked drive right now between Erie and Buffalo. We watch the radar go forward in time here. The entire upstate portion of New York fills in. Western PA here with the snowfall. It gets right into the Berkshires here going into tomorrow morning. A lot of rain in New England to start off, but as this system continues to move off the coast here, we'll actually get enough cold air in here to probably see some snow just to the west of Boston. This system moves off by Saturday morning. It's going to be gone, but boy, I'll tell you, the winds are going to hang around right in through the weekend here. There's your snowfall totals, double-digit snowfalls all across this area here. Once again, tomorrow, I think that I-90 corridor between Buffalo and Albany is just going to be wicked.
Tomorrow morning could be a nightmare commute in some places.
Very well will be. Yeah, winds gusting over 40, 50 miles an hour.
I can't even imagine getting out on a Friday morning trying to deal with that. Tom, thank you. This is all interior stuff, right? Let's take you a little bit closer to the coast, all right, and say hello to you in New York. It is 54 degrees for you right now. Probably the last thing on your mind is snow. So the question is going to be this. How much snow? Can we get snow in a place like New York, Tom, or closer to I-95?
I think the chances are slim, but it's not off the table completely. This system is so dynamic. It has so much energy to it, so much lift in the atmosphere, that it actually is essentially what we refer to as kind of making its own cold air. Because of the lift in the atmosphere, the column is going to cool substantially as we get into tomorrow. Now, most of the 95 quarter, rain tomorrow morning. There will be that snow working its way closely here. It's going to be the higher elevations up in the Poconos and those areas that really see the significant snow. I think you're going to get just a little bit snow for show here along the 95 corridor. By far the most compelling issues that you're going to have tomorrow are going to be the winds. They're going to be gusting over 50 miles an hour coming out of a northwest direction, and that's across that road. So high-profile vehicles are going to have a really rough time there. Again, the snowfall in our forecast keeps it off the 95 corridor, but again, I wouldn't rule out this area just to the west of Boston. The higher elevations going back toward Worcester, those areas could get hit pretty hard. And there's where the high wind warning's out, and not just for the Northeast. Take a look at this all the way down the Appalachians.
So a wind-driven snow in some instances.
Very well could be, yes.
Tom, thank you for that. We come back more on the life-threatening coastal threat with Winter Storm Riley and the beach erosion that will follow. Winter Storm Quinn arriving Lake Tahoe in California. Blizzard warning remains in effect through tomorrow. Several feet of snow are possible over the next several days. But look at the waves cranked up here with the intense winds that we've had. Boy, that's a winter scene in Tahoe. Boy, the beautiful scenes in the summertime replaced by this in the winter, right? Hey, thanks for staying with us here on Weather Underground. I'm Mike Bettis and Alex Wilson off the seat. We're going to have more on Winter Storm Quinn coming up here in just a little bit. But first, the developing situation in the Northeast. And we bring in Dr. Erica Navarro. She's live in Scituate, Massachusetts, where we have a nor'easter that's going to start to crank up here, develop overnight here, Dr. Navarro. And from what you have looked at, how bad do you think it could be in a place like Scituate or in some of these vulnerable areas along the Massachusetts coastline?
Yeah, Mike, in a place here like Scituate, this is going to be a major coastal storm. We've already seen comparisons going back and forth to some previous events, and here we are anticipating to see significant impacts in terms of the waves as well as in terms of the storm surge. Now, earlier today we did talk with the fire chief who was comparing this to some blizzards of the past as well as the flooding earlier this year. Listen in.
This is a bad storm. We're comparing this to the 91 storm. If you weren't here in 91, the devastation that happened, we have a lot of damage coming to our coastline, severe flooding. If you were here last month, a couple months ago on January 4th, you know what the high flooding is going to come fast and furious. So we want to make sure people get out in time so we can actually make sure they're all safe and assist any way we can.
Now, back in January with that storm, we did see significant storm surge of 6 to 7 feet along Oceanside Drive here in Scituate, Massachusetts. That actually had a breach in the seawall from that flooding. And with this storm, we're anticipating to see impacts for about 24 hours longer than that system came in. So that should hopefully set the stage for what is the urgency for this system. We already are seeing road closures here along the Scituate Harbor, including Front Street is anticipated to close tomorrow morning in anticipation of this storm. So officials are urging people to take this storm seriously, leave the area, and if you're here, stay inside. Don't go out to storm chase or look at the storm. This is going to bring significant impacts along the Massachusetts coast in terms of the wind as well as the heavy rain. So at times, visibilities will be down. This is not a day that you want to be outside driving or anything, Mike. With winds coming up into the 30, 40 mile per hour range, we could be seeing those gusting winds up to 70 miles an hour. And those east winds are going to push up this water here right behind me up into the coast. So we could be seeing really bad impacts in a place like Scituate, Mike.